The tampon king gets back in the ring. I speak of former VP nominee Tim Walz. He joined Beto O'Rourke at a Texas town hall last night, and the estrogen levels were enough to give Chuck Norris menstrual cramps.
But I think that, but you can't get past the core fact about Walz, which is he presided over, allowed the biggest city in the state to get burned down.
And seemed to not only allow it, but kind of support it, you know?
Well, yeah, do you see the video of his wife saying, I kept the windows open so I could smell the burning rubber from the riots?
I did not see that.
Wow. The wife whose hand he shook?
Oh, my God. By the way, I mean, I know it's...
let's be...
picking on a little thing, but who the hell shakes their wife's hand?
When Greg Gutfeld and Tucker Carlson work together, it stops being a regular conversation and immediately becomes a complete political destruction. This time, their focus lands on Governor Tim Walz. And they don't just question him. They slice through his story with clever jokes, strong hits, and sarcasm, so accurate it seems like a bright light cutting through darkness. They show every weakness in his strategy and leave nothing remaining. Walz carried his talking points, but Gutfeld and Carlson arrived with a demolition tool designed for primetime effect.
Politico lingers on candidates' fingers and defend Walz's wide eyes as they claim beards are for bad guys. Tyler, speaking of beards, and I mean the one on your face, not the one that you hang out with.
Let me just say that Walz and every other governor who did anything like that is a monster, and I think on some level he will be punished for it. But no, I admire what you did enough that I hope I'd be man enough to do it myself. I took minor risks during COVID by pointing out things that seemed true to me, but I didn't do anything that heroic. I think it's absolutely essential. Clearly, we're moving toward an authoritarian state. I think we've already arrived. I think life is a testament to that.
Greg Gutfeld and Tucker Carlson never ask for approval to roast a politician. And this time, the target basically walks onto the platform begging for it. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz steps right into the attention. A person who claims he's the responsible adult in every space, while behaving more like someone who mistakenly trapped himself inside the wine closet and blamed the entrance. For Gutfeld and Carlson, this isn't labor. It's fun. A challenge they handle like a competitive game with extra excitement flying.
Wait, you lost because you weren't woken up? That's like telling Joy Behar she's not eating enough Doritos. That's like Jasmine Crockett saying, I gotta black this up. That's like Bud Light saying, hey, you know what? We could use more Dylan Mulvaney.
It almost seems like Walz gave them a candy container with his own label stuck to it, covered his eyes, turned around twice, and challenged them to hit as strongly as they could. Greg Gutfeld enters with the assurance of someone who has been counting down all week to release a fresh batch of sarcasm. He barely requires energy. Walz basically creates the situation for him. Gutfeld describes him not as a governor, but as the excited president of the Department of Boring Explanations, giving a roast with additional fire.
So I'm the law-abiding grandma that was sentenced to 90 days in jail for opening my business during the shutdowns as a peaceful protest when Minnesota Governor Tim Walz unconstitutionally and illegally shut our businesses down. So my question is, if you were in my situation, would you have done the same thing, or what would you have done?
Well, I flatter myself by imagining I would have done the same thing, because I think what you did is honorable and necessary.
Every policy disaster, every mistake, every news story that seems like accidental comedy gets handled by Gutfeld with exact timing and comedic sharpness. Walz appears almost scared of taking responsibility, and Gutfeld uses that weakness for everything it's valued. Like someone attempting to get milk from a cow that can't handle dairy on a plant milk farm just to make a statement. The roast begins with a hit at Walz's confident thought of leadership, shutting down the entire state as if it were a maximum security prison, while allowing crime to drive through downtown Minneapolis like it's replaying old TV shows with no stop button.
Reruns.
You're an old white guy. And you're right, you are a huge disappointment. I guess hating himself is the first thing he's nailed correctly. Because Walz saying old white men suck isn't a political stance, it's his confession. Walz calling people old and white is like Maxine Waters making fun of someone for shopping at Wigs R Us.
Gutfeld shows the ridiculous truth of a governor who handles criminals like confused artists, while handling law-following people like children playing around without watching. It doesn't seem like policy. It seems like drama gone totally off track, and the public opinions are harsh. 1 star, definitely not suggested. Gutfeld then rips into Walz's enjoyment for different rules, especially during the pandemic, where Walz managed restrictions like a music mixer at a wild party, adjusting them up, down, sideways, and changing them by the hour. He closed down small businesses with the cold exactness of someone collecting old payments, yet somehow maintained the huge retail stores running, as if diseases nicely declined to walk into a Walmart. Gutfeld doesn't just laugh at the unfairness. He makes it into a best-of collection of political fakeness that strikes harder than a late-night comedy bit powered by 2 powerful coffees. Then he changes to schools, attacking Walz's history like a backup teacher finally getting upset, showing how Minnesota classrooms became into spots focused more on emotions than real information.
Wait, so Trump is making it more difficult for women to vote? How so? Math problems? But it's further proof that the most dangerous thing for a leftist is a follow-up question, which is why you never hear any. But I guess questioning elections is okay now. But the best moment came when Walz forgot who he is.
Gutfeld makes fun of a thought that fairness has turned into the new mathematics, where 2 plus 2 mysteriously becomes whatever keeps everyone happy, no matter how incorrect it is. Walz's school policies, he claims, seem like giving out prizes just for attending a video call, making success into a participation game rather than actual education. Changing topics, Gutfeld goes straight into Walz's so-called money plan, or as he hints, the missing of one. Under Walz, Minnesota slowly changed into a lesson on how to make steady improvement into complete worry. With taxes rising like cats climbing up a drape and businesses running away as if they smell fire, Gutfeld labels it a perfect example in money repulsion. Almost as if Walz operated a test on pushing out new ideas and confused the failure warnings for signs of winning. What the state required wasn't a governor. It required someone to remove the mess. By the time Gutfeld completes, Walz appears less like a leader and more like a live example of how far average can climb when covered in a friendly grin. And just when the space calms down, another round of sharp jokes falls like heavy objects, quick, heavy, and impossible to avoid right before Tucker Carlson enters for round 2.
5 years ago this summer, George Floyd, a convicted felon, OD'd on fentanyl outside a convenience store in Minneapolis, and the country changed forever. 5 years later, Tim Walz is still the governor. Keith Ellison is still the attorney general. The cops who were falsely convicted of murdering George Floyd are mostly still in prison. But what happened in Minneapolis itself? Well, it's been wrecked. And no one has said a word about it. But I just wonder about this story in particular. Did he have contact with Walz? Do we know that Walz ever, suppose Walz said, I met this guy ever?
Tucker describes how Walz closed down churches but maintained liquor stores running, delivering the weird signal that religion was somehow risky while alcohol was viewed essential. And he shows the tightly managed tone of Walz's press meetings, where people were basically instructed what to believe, what to worry about, and even when they were permitted to go outside, making the state into something that seemed more like grown-up daycare with a controlling twist. Tucker explains Walz as the type of leader who behaves like individuals should request permission just to breathe and maybe even fill out a paper before sneezing, with every fresh rule covered in quiet small print that basically stated, just believe us, even though Carlson has never believed government workers wearing fake herring. Then he slices into schools, looking at how belief lessons took over actual education until grades fell, calling it brainwashing hidden as improvement, and showing how teaching children to dislike their own state background does nothing to get them ready for life. To him, Walz stands for the most annoying type of leadership, boring, arrogant, and obedient to rich agreement, a hall guard with a retirement plan instead of a true governor. and Tucker removes the polite Minnesota surface to show a soft, controlling pattern underneath. The type that grins while approving orders that quietly create life tougher for regular individuals. All while he laughs instead of yelling, making every attack land even sharper.
Well, this is what's interesting. We know that he served on a board appointed by Walz. However, I'll say that...
what kind of board was that?
It was a workforce development board.
Tucker appears almost confused that anyone still considers Walz seriously, and every statement he gives cuts like a surgical knife dipped in sarcasm, hitting with the accuracy of a legal document wrapped inside a comedy roast. Carlson doesn't break down Walz by mistake. He does it slowly, purposefully, and with a sharp feeling of humor that never fails its goal, making a criticism that seems both ruthless and measured. Together, Gutfeld and Carlson don't simply roast Tim Walz. They burn straight through the story of skill he has attempted to create. One using jokes that slice deeper than most policy arguments, the other giving analysis sharper than a debate stage counterattack. Gutfeld brings the comedy club heat. Carlson delivers the courtroom accuracy, and Walz unknowingly gives a never-ending supply of content that creates the destruction even simpler. And when the noise stops, the laughter quiets and the grins stay. 1 point rises obviously. No matter how much someone covers failure in optimism, twists it with polished press meetings, or hides it behind quick phrases, they can't run from two sharp speakers digging through their biggest hits of disaster. Instead, thanks to the combined strength of Greg Gutfeld and Tucker Carlson, Walz winds up remembered as the person who accidentally carried a toy instrument to a complete roast and got totally grilled only for Gutfeld to return in as if he suddenly recalled another joke worth sharing.
Are people misreading Tim's odd greeting? The man of the hour, Tim Walz, brings us our second video of the day, and he's got a very weird way of greeting his wife of 30 years. Roll it.
Roasting Tim Walz isn't a single event for Gutfeld. It's a never-ending feast of mistakes that keeps filling itself, and he comes back to it with that clear spark in his eye. The expression someone gets when they discover there's still sweet food waiting in the refrigerator. He challenges Walz's skill for tricks, the way he succeeds to speak endlessly while expressing totally nothing, making speeches into storms of paper pieces that create a huge mess without building a single obvious point. Then Gutfeld jumps into Walz's obsession with obeying the science, which he changes into a complete comedy act because it's never real science, but chosen science, the easy kind that sits on a neat card held by someone in a lab jacket who might also instruct yoga on weekends. Gutfeld shows how Walz applies that phrase like a magic word to defend everything from evening curfews to building limits, behaving as if instructing grandma she can't embrace her grandchildren, somehow create sense while allowing her stand in a long government office line behind someone coughing into their clothing. Under Walz, Minnesota became into a testing area for every half-finished climate thought passed down from individuals who believe real work is sharing colorful pictures on social media, making the state stuck in a pattern of tests that rarely gave anything but annoyance.
His wedding anniversary, they were married 5 years after Tiananmen Square, and he picked that date because it was a date that they would remember, he and his wife.
What?
Who does that?
Tiananmen Square?
Correct.
Tank crushing the lone protester? That's
their wedding anniversary. And they went to China for their honeymoon.
Are you sure the anniversary?
They've talked about that in interviews. Yeah, it's just in newspapers.
Tiananmen Square was a massacre of peaceful protesters.
I know.
Do you think they picked it to, like, in memory of those brave souls who died opposing the machine?
They haven't said that.
What?
Tucker shows how the governor forced green energy strategies that somehow wound up both costly and undependable, making a system that appeared good in presentations, but broke apart the second real weight arrived. He mentions that Walz discussed endlessly about sustainability while governing like someone who won't examine in a mirror, overlooking the problems collecting up around him. The state's electricity system bent quicker than his backbone at a teachers' union gathering. And when the power went out, both actually and symbolically, Walz behaved as if nature itself had turned against him rather than accepting the policies were a disaster. Tucker then grabs on the topic of Walz's comfortable connection with unions, describing how the governor succeeded to make certain government jobs into protected status badges while the private business was left struggling for air like a fish fighting on a pavement.
One of them at Politico says it's like Walz's wide eyes showed his passion and emotional intensity. Can we show that? There is that humans would widen their eyes to convey that danger is close. What emotion are you getting from that? Sorry. That was everything.
Carlson explains the money chain response Walz made, displaying how small businesses were pushed under the symbolic vehicle in the label of equality, only for that same vehicle to fall off a mountain and somehow be criticized on capitalism instead of the policies that triggered it. He labels the whole situation a type of unplanned theater with actual life results, making ordinary individuals to handle the damage while leadership acted unconcerned. Gutfeld returns in by focusing Walz's social media activity, or rather his total missing of understanding online, stating, "Every message seems like an uncle who just found Twitter and chose to live post a town meeting about observing paint drying. It's all picture and no content, like a political dummy programmed to give mild clapping statements without providing anything important." Carlson finishes with a sharp warning that the actual tragedy is Walz genuinely thinks he's creating good even as he guides the state deeper into average performance. Not from meanness, but from mixing good plans with real skill. And when failure finally appears in measurable outcomes, he criticizes the regulations instead of the design he made.
I think more than 100 of these boards in Minnesota. Most of them are voluntary boards. So he was appointed to that board by Governor Mark Dayton, a Democrat, and reappointed by Walz. That expired in 2023. So it is unclear if they ever knew each other. They were on the interesting, Senator Hoffman and Vance Belter were on the same board together, so you would think that they somehow knew each other.
Every policy disaster, every messed up choice, and every news story that sounds like something taken from a comedy show gets given by Gutfeld with sharp comedic timing and almost surgical accuracy. Walz appears nearly scared to taking responsibility, and Gutfeld uses that idea for everything it's valued, like someone determined to get milk from a cow that can't handle dairy on a plant milk farm just to make the statement louder. The roast starts off with a direct attack at Walz's thought of leadership, which somehow included shutting down the entire state as if it were a maximum security prison, all while allowing crime ride passenger through downtown Minneapolis like a replay nobody requested for, making a scene that basically roasts itself.
How did a 7-Eleven manager / mortuary remains disposal guy wind up on governor-appointed board in the state?
Tucker describes how the governor forced green energy strategies that somehow succeeded to be both expensive and undependable, making a system that appeared visionary in talks, but broke the second pressure arrived. And he shows how Walz discussed endlessly about sustainability while guiding like someone totally scared of mirrors. The state's electricity system bent underweight quicker than his position at a teachers' union gathering. And when the power went out both actually and symbolically, Walz responded as if nature had personally turned against him instead of recognizing his own policies were the actual reason. Tucker then shows Walz's comfortable relationship with unions, displaying how he made certain government positions into protected status badges, while the private business fought for survival, like a fish gasping on a pavement. Gutfeld shows the ridiculous truth of a governor who handles criminals like confused artists and handles law-following people like unsupervised young children, making policy into strange drama that receives a firm 1-star score from anyone viewing. He keeps breaking apart Walz's different rules, especially during the pandemic, explaining how Walz managed restrictions like a music mixer at a wild party, adjusting them up, down, backward, and changing them whenever the feeling struck. Walz closed down small businesses with the cold exactness of someone gathering payments, but maintained big stores running, as if diseases politely declined to walk into a Walmart. Gutfeld doesn't just laugh at the unfairness. He changes it into a best-of collection of fakeness that strikes harder than a late-night comedy bit powered by 2 powerful coffees. Then he changes to schools, attacking Walz's history like a backup teacher finally breaking, showing how Minnesota classrooms turned into more about emotions than information, with reading grades falling, math grades dropping quicker than his approval numbers, and red tape growing with every passing month.